I have to be honest, I don't know how the hell some other critics and people on YouTube managed to get reviews out for one battle after another immediately after seeing it or even before its release, because I've seen it 3 times now, once in VistaVision and twice in IMAX, and I still don't feel ready to tackle it really, because like all of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, this is an immensely intricate, thematically complex film that not only offers so much about the world we live in now, but also what it means to be a parent who has been witness to that changing world and a child who's going to inherit it. It's a girl-dad movie, but it's also a dad-girl movie. I think we all know what PTA has been thinking about now that he has 4 kids under the age of 20, but then there's, the billions of other things going on that we will talk about. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review, you have been warned, but it's so fucking funny, it's epic and operatic. I think it is easily the best film of the year so far. I think the conversations it started have been so exciting. There are 2 scenes towards the end where I'm just like full-on crying, and because this is PTA's most explicitly political subject matter to date, it's not only one of his only contemporary set films, but also about political revolutionaries, the film is also being viewed through the lens of how perfect its politics are. And I think those readings are absolutely valid and necessary. I don't think the film does have perfect politics. What movie does? I think it's impossible, and that's completely subjective. But to me, this film is no different to PTA's other films in that it's not meant to be the definitive manifesto on revolution. It's almost using the world these characters exist in as allegory for a broader emotional journey and how that connects back to us as humans, because all of PTA's films are political. Look at the post-war cult of the master, the insidious backdrop behind the 70s nostalgia in Licorice Pizza, the seedy porn industry in Boogie Nights. All of There Will Be Blood. PTA is my favorite filmmaker, or tied for it, and I think he still goes underappreciated for how incisive he is as a commenter on human behavior and psychology in these different pockets of our world. And all that is not to say that he doesn't have a responsibility to the things he's depicting in this film. He's not shy about incorporating these intersections of race and sex and revolution, but I think it results in something messier and more interesting than if it was trying to be more didactic or correct. I was actually a bit caught off guard after my first watch because early reactions had really hyped up the film as important, of the moment, revolutionary, etc. And those words obviously mean something different to everyone, but I don't think this film is in and of itself revolutionary despite being about revolutionaries. And I think the unique blend of timeliness, timelessness, fantasy, and reality here creates something much different than I was expecting. A lot of that also coming from the more Pynchonian elements of the film, because this was at least partially adapted from the Thomas Pynchon Reagan-era book Vineland, which I have not read, but all of the paranoia and farcical underground societies and tunnels and codes. The film brilliantly slides between tones and modes of reality, a balancing act that every single performance is completely in tune with. Leonardo DiCaprio is the dude 1 second and a tear-jerking dad the next. Chase Infiniti is a Gen Z daughter, then a young revolutionary with the weight of the world on her shoulders. Movie star, by the way. Seeing her face on the big screen just felt very right. Teyana Taylor is asking Leo to fuck while a bomb goes off 1 second and being one of the most tragic, complex on-screen mothers the next. And if you haven't seen 1001, please go watch it. Sean Penn goes from pathetic to cartoonish to completely terrifying. I don't even know how to cover the depth of these performances and characters. It's like Micro Expressions, the movie. But I do think that Perfidia Beverly Hills has gone as the most misunderstood character in these early discussions, especially as some people have taken issue with her being a traitor to the French 75 and painted as this selfish person. And I encourage people to seek out reviews by Black critics or Black female critics, especially generally for how the characters of color are depicted here. But I will say that on each subsequent watch, I felt more and more touched by the fleeting image we get of Perfidia in the prologue of the film and how the ending letter hits so hard after throughout the whole movie, we don't get to hear her side of the story and how she has grown in the years since then. Willa has only heard who her mother was from other people until she reads this letter. But what we see in the prologue is a woman who had a ferocity for her independence and became a mother her when she wasn't ready. She experienced postpartum depression and detachment. She feels ugly. She feels abandoned. She feels guilty for feeling jealous of her child. It's all really heartbreaking, especially in how her act of shooting the man in the bank robbery and getting the French 75 caught and then ratting everyone out happens in the wake of that inner turmoil and loss of identity. A really important part of her letter that makes me cry so much is that she pretended to be strong. She pretended to be dead. I think that retroactively changes everything about the prologue, down to her psychosexual relationship with Lockjaw and her trying to have power and control in a world where she is fetishized and dehumanized. She did a bad thing. She's a challenging and complicated person, and she looms over the film like a shadow. She is inextricable from Willa discovering herself and her path in life. So this is simultaneously a coming-of-age story for Willa and a reckoning with age and parenting story for Bob. Willa has been protected from the world by Bob up until this point. He's told her about his past and given her the tools, but now he is no longer in control of whether she has to face that, and she's plunged into this really harsh world where she is under siege for her race because of who her parents were, because she's becoming an adult. She doesn't have that safety net anymore. And it all comes together in a climax that is truly one of the greatest and most unique and inventive car chases ever put to film. Seeing it in IMAX was insane. It's a moment that's equally important for Willa and Bob. Willa now taking control of her life and her place in the world, and Bob coming to terms with the fact that that is happening to his child and that all he can do is prepare her for it and be there for her. I was equally struck by the moment where she screams, "Who are you?" to Bob, and I'm not even sure if I should call him Bob or Pat, which also works thematically so well with the film, but she's seemingly questioning her trust in her own father because of what she's learned about the world and her parents. But also when their trust devices come on and their tunes align, it's a revelation of mutual understanding, of a daughter finding her way and a father allowing her to do so with trust. One of the more interesting things about this journey is that even though Bob has prepared Willa as best he can, he is almost completely powerless in helping her through the whole movie. Their journey is dictated by the people they come into contact with who either help them or try to hurt them. One of the most powerful being Benicio del Toro's Underground Railroad situation as Sensei Sergio. It's so compelling through this whole stretch in the second act to see the stark contrast between Bob and Sensei, not only in how out of touch Bob has become with this world, but how Sensei's operation functions in comparison to the French 75. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bob is not a man of color. He's one of the only white people we see to be involved with the French 75, and he not only didn't seem to be involved with them for personal activism reasons, but he stopped being engaged with those efforts when he didn't have to be. It almost reminded me of Big Trouble in Little China, how lost he was in the middle of Sensei's operation. And there's a lot here about not just the French 75's specific tactics, but their personal motivations as these young bombastic revolutionaries wanting to create spectacle compared to Sensei's operation, which has different goals but is incredibly effective almost because it's without ego and focused on the bigger picture. Sensei doesn't complain a single time about the lengths he has to go to help Bob. And as he says, they've been under siege for hundreds of years. Don't get selfish. It ends up being this really powerful depiction of solidarity and community, a well-oiled machine enacting change that's not seen. The revolution will not be televised, etc., etc. And Bob and Sensei are just like the cutest friends. There are actually parallels drawn between the French 75 and the Christmas Adventurers Club and how they both participate in exclusivity and barriers to entry, like codes and criteria. The entire phone call scene with Leo and Comrade Josh is so funny, as PTA is kind of poking fun at the futility of leftist infighting. And Benicio's operation serves as a contrast to bring those practices into question, but I don't think we're meant to see the French 75 as bad revolutionaries because of this. There are no binaries in this film, but I have seen some really interesting analyses of how the film treats violent protest by way of the French 75 and kind of what happens to them. I don't think the film is against violent protest, but again, it's a really nuanced image, and it's complicated. There are no simple answers to these things, and that's what makes the film so rich. But anyways, Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw is one of the most pathetic, despicable characters I have ever seen put to film, but this is PTA, so he still feels like a fully realized person, to the point that you almost just feel sad at the character and how desperate he is to be accepted into this white supremacist club that does not offer him the same unconditional love and community that we see with the revolutionary characters. You almost notice he's human and how inhuman he has become as he walks around like he has a literal stick or maybe the government's fist up his ass, but also like all of Sean Penn's exaggerated facial tics. It's a brilliant performance. It makes it feel like he's like actively suppressing his own humanity to the point of appearing mechanical. And as I said, so much of this is fantastical and cartoonish, Lockjaw and the Christmas Adventurers Club especially, and I wouldn't be surprised if some people think the way that the film is blending like the real world revolutionary elements and sort of making a lot of it farcical creates like a weird dissonance that makes the film not work as well for them. I just think the film balances those tones and different elements so brilliantly. I haven't even talked about the fact that he is Willa's father and the power of like everything. I think it's so interesting that we don't actually see Bob find out that Lockjaw is Willa's real father, almost as though it doesn't matter. We don't even know if he ever finds that out. It's a miracle how well the film is edited by Andy Jurgensen. It's constantly dealing with like 5 layers of characters intertwining and playing cat and mouse, and just the way it delivers information and relates things to one another. Willa walking towards Lockjaw with the blaring Johnny Greenwood score that is probably the best of the year. I love the costume design, especially in how it makes Willa and Bob feel frozen in time. I have not even mentioned Regina Hall, who is fantastic here and might not be in it much, but serves such an important purpose, being there for Willa when she needs it and making her own sacrifices. I love her exchange with the nun where she says Deandra has more fight in her than the rest of them. Eric Schweig is amazing as Avanti, the indigenous tracker who is actually incredibly consequential to the film as he saves Willa's life, presumably inspired by the racism that he experiences himself, and that he might see hope in Willa as the next generation. Jungle Pussy's monologue, holy shit. There are so many things I could mention. I've still only scratched the surface. All of PTA's films are so dense and thoughtful. He certainly knew that it would be a complicated time to release this film during, and I'm excited to keep hearing your thoughts and what critics have said. It just feels good, though, to have a film by one of our best filmmakers really live up to expectations and feel like this joyous moment to celebrate film in these bleak, bleak times. So I will end re-emphasizing some of the words in Perfidia's letter where she says to Willa, "Are you happy? Do you have love? Will you try to change the world like I did? We failed, but maybe you will not." I think that is the ultimate statement of hope that the film has, again, both being specific and being about political revolution, but also a broader reflection on how it's all just one battle after another. So if it wasn't already obvious, I'm going to give One Battle After Another 5 out of 5 stars. I want this to win Best Picture so bad. We have to get PTA his first Oscar, maybe his first couple of Oscars. It's hard to know right now where this will fall in my full ranking of his films because I'm just so emotionally attached to so many of them, so I feel like only time will tell. But let me know what you guys think of One Battle After Another. Did it live up to the hype for you? What do you think of PTA's other films? And I also want to take a second to say thank you so much for 20,000 subscribers. Thank you for the support. I feel so lucky and grateful that I get to talk to you guys about movies. Some of you have been around since the very beginning, and I'm just excited to keep doing this. So don't forget to like and subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.